Welcome to Sex Ed in the City with Drew and Dr. G.
About health and sex education in today's modern classroom. Get an inside peek into the world of sex education and real-life stories from teachers. Hosted by experienced educators Drew and Dr. G, each episode brings you an open and honest discussion about a range of topics related to health and sex education.
Hey. Welcome back, everyone, to Sex Ed in the City. We're so excited to be here. Hi, Drew.
Hey, how's it going, Dr. G?
It's going good. I'm finally over being sick, so that's good. But we are super excited for our guest today. So, Drew, why don't you introduce our guest?
Absolute pleasure. All right, everybody. So today we have Tanya M. Bass, PhD. So Dr. Bass to y'all. Tanya Bass is a national award-winning sexuality educator and a subject matter expert in the areas of health equity and sexual health. She's an alumna of North Carolina Central University's Department of Public Health Education and the Center of Human Sexuality Studies at Widener University. Dr. Bass is the founder of the NC Sexual Health Conference and the lead instructor for human sexuality at NCCU. She's also one of our dearest, coolest friends. So we're super stoked to have her. Tanya, how's it going? Dr. Bass.
Hey y'all. Hey, it's going so good. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so proud of all that y'all are doing and contributing to our world. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. We love everything that you do. Wow. Dr. Bass is one of the most well-known sex educators, I think, of our generation. So shout out to her and all her awards and everything that she does for the sex ed
Rock
world.
star. Yeah.
I feel so privileged to have you in my life, and I'm so glad we became friends in school. So we are so excited to have you here. So we usually start off with a question of the day just for fun and for our listeners to get to know our guests. So today's question of the day, in honor of the Southern Sexologist being here with us, we would like to talk about what is your favorite Southern style food to eat?
Ooh, that is interesting. Cause Southern. Okay, like for real, what makes me happy is this time of the year, especially makes me think about my grandmother. And she used to have a garden. And most kids, well, I don't say most, some kids, it's also kind of stereotypical. They're like, ooh, you don't eat your vegetables, right? Like, who eats vegetables? Well, my grandma had a vegetable garden. So my favorite Southern food is like just Southern made, like country fresh corn. So she used to, and in all the ways, like how Forrest Gump had like the whole shrimp situation. There's a corn situation in my family. So like when we have fresh corn, we have corn stewed, corn fried, corn boiled on the cob, and corn fritters. So like I know how to shuck corn. I know how to cream it off, and we did cream corn too. Cream it off of the cob. So I know how to fry it up. I haven't perfected the corn fritter because only one person in the family still has that recipe. And then fried corn, if you've never had fried corn, woo! You get it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, by itself as a side. So kind of like the Southern cuisine of like all the ways to have corn, fried okra, and cucumber salad. Is that a style? I don't know if I answered the question, but those are my
It's like 1,000%.
I'm
I've
hungry
never
now.
had fried corn. Ooh,
And it has to be the best way is to fry is fried fresh corn or the corn that's like not the yellow can looking corn. It has to be kernel like straight off the cob corn.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We'll put that on my list of things to try. Drew, what's
It's
yours?
best with bacon grease, but healthy.
I mean, anything with bacon in it is like, come on. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, that makes me so hungry. It's lunchtime here. My favorite, I don't know if this counts because I don't technically know if it's a Southern dish, but my grandma was from Louisville, Kentucky.
Who is Southern?
Okay, good. She used to make chicken and waffles for us, or chicken and biscuits, chicken and gravy, whatever it was called, and it was just so so tasty. I don't know. I never got the recipe. I think my sister has it. And I also went vegetarian for like 6 years, so I couldn't eat it the last couple of years she was alive. But oh my God, it was so good. You just sop up the chicken and the gravy. It was
The
just
fact that you said
so
sop lets it know that it's Southern.
okay.
Right.
That's
We're
another
eating
word.
we're eating it in Pennsylvania. So I was like, is this like a Pennsylvania Dutch kind of thing? I don't know, but we'll give it the Southern route. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mwah.
Oh my gosh, I love chicken and waffles, but only from certain places. So I used to live in LA, and there's Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. And to this day, I have not had a better, because they put malt in their waffles. So it has this flavor. And then the way they do their chicken, it's just like, we used to go there, ooh, and you'd have chicken and waffles with the Arnold Palmer. It's like the best. So good. Oh, yum. My dad's parents are from the South, and my grandma would cook all kinds of things, but not things that I like to eat. She would make like hog head cheese.
Oh,
That's
they're
nasty, y'all.
Southern
Like,
country
it's,
Southern.
yeah, they're like, she
Because
would
there's
make,
Southern and then there's country.
yeah.
It's like
Mm-mm.
that's a rule.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
not eating hog head cheese. I'm not eating.
We called it Souse.
Oh, did you? Fancy. Yeah.
Fancy
Well,
Souse.
yeah, the things my grandmother made, like chitlins. I don't like chitlins either. I know it's a debate, but it's the smell. I don't like it. If you call it tripe, if you call it chitlins, whatever it is,
You don't like it.
it's not for me. But I do like a liver and onions, like fried up.
I love
I
it.
can't think about what it is, but that right there, liver and onions, is good.
It is.
And it's good for you too. But yeah, my mom used to fry up the liver onions with the gizzard as well.
I've never tried this. Maybe that's something I need to give a go.
Do it.
Or
Now
maybe
that you're not a
not.
vegetarian
Maybe not.
anymore.
You gotta have the right taste, because a lot of people think it tastes
Yeah.
bitter, but if it's made right and seasoned well, yum.
Yeah, it's so good.
But I don't know how to
Yeah,
make
so-
it. So.
Yeah. Maybe you got to get someone to do that for you.
Yeah.
Don't try that at home. Don't try that at home.
Don't try this at home.
Okay. Dr. Bass, we were classmates in our first ever class together at grad school, correct? At Widener?
Yes, we were.
We were besties from day one. I loved it. Do you want to talk a little bit to our viewers about just your journey to getting to where you are today? So maybe like schooling, undergraduate, like jobs, things like, or anything you find applicable.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm gonna do a shout out to my mom. Her birthday was last week, 81. Yay,
Oh.
she's lovely. But she was going to school to be a nurse when she got pregnant with me, and she never said, "Ooh, I stopped going to nursing school because I got pregnant with Tanya." Like, there was never any guilt, but somehow I think I might unconsciously have picked that up, and so I went to school, was studying nursing, was not liking it, was not taking the classes according to schedule because also it was college, and by sophomore year I was partying down. So anyway, ended up changing my major to public health instead, and fell in love with it. First job out of school that was public health related, which ages me, but was the STD hotline where people would call in. It was the CDC hotline, was actually based in North Carolina in Durham, right from my school, down from my school. And I got all this training as a communication specialist, just answering the phone, people all over the US asking questions about STDs. And people, I felt like girl six, but like
Oh
in
my
a
gosh.
health profession way.
Oh my gosh. You have to tell us some of the wild questions
Oh,
that you got.
it really wasn't the questions, it was the masturbators. But I also now kind of appreciate them now that I'm doing the work in a different way. But they would call and they would be like, well, what's the thing that the discharge comes out of? And we'd be like, your penis. Oh, well, what do some people call it? So they wanted you to either say penis or dick or something like some word. So they
got
want
it.
you to keep saying it, and the longer they kept you on the phone, and then you could literally hear them like masturbating.
Oh, that's a
And
fun
then they
time.
would hang up. And then so we got those, and not fun, but disheartening. And I hope she's not listening, but also hope she is for your listeningship. But there was a lady that worked there from Boston, and I hated when she got a call about HPV because she said Watts, and she would be like, oh, the only way you could get Watts, you get Watts this way, and you get what? And I'm like, it's warts, it's warts. So,
Oh,
but it was, I mean, it was a really good service, pre-internet, right? So people could call in and do that. Fast forward, started working HIV prevention, became my passion, working with colleges, universities, persons navigating their diagnosis. And that's when I think the bug around lesson planning and becoming an educator and curriculum writer, because I had to help write a curriculum for peer educator navigators who worked in our infectious disease clinic to help them become trained on how to support newly diagnosed folks and
mm,
going deeper than just medical stuff, but understanding like your sex life doesn't end because you have an HIV diagnosis. And what does it mean to be a sexual being? And, I didn't get that from my prevention work because it was always like use condoms, get tested, limit your partners, like use lube, that kind of thing. And it was more
mhm,
so in this work that I tapped into like understanding your five senses and what it means in vulnerability to even disclosure status, and that
mm,
some people might not. And so I continued my career trajectory and I started working at the state in North Carolina for the Department of Education
Mm.
right when our helpful living standards kind of changed with a healthy youth act so that we could be more comprehensive, although I still don't think it's comprehensive, but that, that's a debate here in the state, and
right.
and also in the world, like what is comprehensive sex.
Yeah.
um so then I went to the National Sex Ed Conference and I was like, wait, there's a program that I can get an actual, because I've been playing around with the idea of getting my doctorate degree. Every 3 years, I would be like, man, I missed the opportunity to apply for a job because I didn't start school. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. I already have 2 degrees in health education, health promotion. Let's just get this PhD and do it in education and under human sexuality. So as I ended up at Widener, and it's been up from there. Like I really just feel like all the stuff that I learned in my career and in my other schooling helped propel some of the things I was doing by learning at Widener. So like when I met you, Drew, I was kind of like, oh, we do kind of like we've had similar work paths. And then same thing with like Rachel, because I remember we kind of connected on theory because we
Hmm.
took our theory
Hmm.
class together, and I was like, I love the health belief model. Like,
Right. We were such public health nerds in that class.
so yeah, that's how it all kind of like. I mean, I probably skipped a bunch of jobs in between because that's one thing about me is like I try to grow and move up and make space for other people. Like
Hmm.
I know some people they're like I'm gonna stay here in this job until I retire, and I'm like no, let's make space for new ideas, new
Mm.
people, and
Hmm.
try to make a difference. So there are a lot of jobs in between there, Drew, but that's the Cliff Notes version.
I
Love
love that.
it. When did you start teaching? You teach at your alma mater, correct?
Yeah.
How did that come about in this journey?
So I got my first master's in '03. Now listen, I love my alma mater. I am very incestuously involved with them because I have both my degrees from that school. And although when I finished undergrad, I was like, I'm never coming back to these four walls. I hate it here. I'm glad I made it out because it was hard. Like, you know about hazing. I feel like we got public health haze. Like, I
Wow.
earned that degree. I mean, and I don't mean that in like an abusive,
Yeah.
physical abusive way, but mentally, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Hmm.
But I feel better for it. But I always wanted to go back and teach once I got over the harm. And in '03, while I was finishing my degree, one of my colleagues was like, "Hey, enrollment is up. We need some folks to teach part time our personal health and wellness class," which was one of my favorite classes before I
Mm.
even was a public health major. And I was like, "Absolutely yes." And so I started teaching the fall of '03, right after I graduated. By the next fall, I had applied for a job as the first ever um, health educator in student health
Mm.
and on campus. And even though we had a public health department, public health education department, our campus didn't have a health educator for the
Mm.
campus. So I became that, and then I still kept teaching, and I started teaching a few more classes and doing programming. And then how I inherited this beautiful human sexuality course that I'm going to hold on to dear life is my colleague and former teacher, Mildred Page, was like 82, maybe 83, when she was like, you know what, I'm done teaching. And so they were like, well, you could teach this class or nothing. And I was like, whoa, what an ultimatum. So I was like, hello, I'm going to teach this class. So she gave me all her stuff, and then I started teaching human sexuality. I think it was the fall of 2014.
Mm.
So it was right before, oh, it might have been 15. I forget the Widener situation, but it was like
Mhm.
all of it happened at one time. And I was like, cool, I get to talk about what I'm learning as well in this class. So that's how I ended up at NCCU. Was my colleague and friend who had worked in the HIV prevention program became a lead coordinator for the course at NCCU. And I said, yes.
Oh my
That's
gosh. Shout out to
awesome.
that woman who taught until she was in her 80s. The one you took the class for. I was like, oh,
Yes.
80?
And
I don't think I'm
everybody
gonna
remembered
make
the
it that
class.
long.
Well, it's still the only human sexuality course that we have on campus, and everybody loved her. She was heavy on tests. I'm not too heavy on tests because I don't like
Mhm.
grading them, and I don't like taking them, so I'm trying not to be that instructor.
Mhm.
But people loved her course, and I really felt proud that she kind of gave it to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always find it so interesting how people's careers kind of jigsaw around and where things actually end up. It's almost like, we have the choice, but like what our path is meant to be, we get there somehow.
Somehow,
Even if we go all the way around it, eventually our choices end up into where we're supposed to be.
mhm.
That's so cool. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I mean, we know,
Ooh.
but like tell our listeners kind of like some of the stuff you're involved in now because you do so much.
Yeah,
And
so like
So much.
so I mentioned going to the National Sex Ed Conference. That's what kind of made me want to pursue my doctorate degree. And I have been to so many conferences, y'all. Like all the work that I've done has either been like HIV prevention related conference or teen pregnancy prevention or intimate partner violence or like, just all the siloed kind of ways. And so when I went to National Sex Ed, I was like, this is cool, and built a relationship with Bill Tavener. I was like, these are my people. This is great. We need something like this in North Carolina. Um, and then I went to James Wadley's conference, and I remember he first started. It wasn't a large number, like so. You think if you're a successful conference, you need like 500 to 800 people or something random like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start a conference, and it literally felt like, well, I shouldn't say that because I don't know, but from what I was told, like just being pregnant, like I couldn't rest. I was restless every time I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. It would just keep coming up, and it was like I couldn't sleep at night. I would wake up in the middle of the night and write things on the post-it. And then I just honestly, I'm a woman of faith, so I prayed and I was like, okay, who can help me do this conference? And I'm gonna do it. And if we have 75 people, that's what I'm gonna do. So in 2016, I founded the North Carolina Sexual Health Conference.
woo woo.
Well, technically 2015, we held it in 2016, and we had like 125 people, way more than 75. And I was like, yes, this is
Yeah.
awesome. And then at the end of the conference, I was like, see y'all next year. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I didn't mean, I just thought, yeah, I just needed it one time. But then we had it the next year, and it grew to like twice as big. And then we didn't have it because I was deep in schoolwork in 2018. And then 2019, we almost reached that 400 mark, and it was dope. And then COVID happened.
COVID, the ruiner of all things.
Yeah, so I'm still working on the conference, and I got it as a small business, and we do SARS, we do other trainings. I just started a nonprofit from optics to action, because also things that I've
Yes.
seen, yeah, is that a lot of people in my last work experience was like very much a performative hire around health equity and sexual
Hmm.
health. And it was like I was slapped on this website immediately, but yet we weren't really doing any work. And a lot of times people are just doing things for how, the way it looks. So for the optics. And I
Hmm.
want to move people to action, even if like I want to offer trainings, I'm going to offer trainings. And I know that training isn't the end all be all, but it's an important part of the process. So I'm hoping that people will take my training and then I can support them as they move towards action based on a change in their knowledge, a change in their attitudes, and then that behavior will change in their organizations or the way they approach their work. So that's coming out. Be on the lookout. We're going to I'm really looking at the South. So North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. Right now, we'll just see. Tennessee. I forgot. I got to say Tennessee.
Mhm.
That's going to be a good catchment area. And then I'm teaching. And so that's
I
really.
love it.
Oh, I'm a member of ASEC. I got to plug ASEC too as the vice president of membership. So I'm also doing that as a volunteer.
Yeah, you do so much. And y'all, the North Carolina Sex Conference is amazing. Excuse me. I'll edit that. So the North Carolina Sex Conference is amazing. I went this past year with Dr. Fazy, who will be on the pod hopefully the next couple episodes. And we had such a good time. And I mean, it's truly a testament to not only your work, but like the community you've built in North Carolina is so strong. And it was a really beautiful thing to see. Like, I know you as this one person, but to see you like in your element doing the conference and just this amazing community that you've built there, like kudos to you, because it was awesome. And I felt really privileged to be able to attend. You did a great job. It was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, every time I think about it, like I had the time this year to share on the panel, like how it all got started and what does community mean. And I was like, man, I had a $2,000, thank you, Widener, but also debt, a $2,000 refund check from school loan. And I was like, this is my seed money for my conference. That's all I had. And I was like, oh God, if I could just play this keynote, if I can just play this keynote speaker that Teddy wants to bark at here. But yeah, I mean, I had just enough money in the bank to pay our first keynote speaker or two, and then it was all relying on, registrations. Oh gosh, can y'all hear him crunching too?
Yeah,
No.
it's amazing.
I can hear
Oh, I can totally hear him crunching. It's great. I love our animals being extended to our families of meetings
Wow.
these days, because our animals are part of our
They
families.
really
So
are.
I think
Yeah.
it's great. I love when people's cats, how cats for some reason are like obsessed with the heat of the computer or something, and then they
They'll
always
bop up.
turn around and their buttholes in the camera, and you're like, why? Why? Oh, look
didn't get
at
that.
Teddy is
Teddy
so
is
Oh,
cute.
obsessed with anything he
Teddy.
thinks he can hear and barks at
Mm,
it. He's very
mm.
protective.
Look at it. Hold me, love me.
Oh, for those of you that aren't watching, just listening, you should come on the video and see this dog. It is literally like a little teddy bear.
Dr. Bass,
cute.
that the thought of like putting on a conference like that and you going from like 0 to 100 is just like that's like mind-blowing to me. That's something that would never even cross my mind, because there just seems like so many logistics and like hurdles, and the fact that you just like went for it, you're like, I'm gonna do this, like I find that so cool. Like, could never imagine myself doing that.
It was scary. I'm not gonna like if I sit here
Yeah.
and say that it wasn't scary and that it didn't have like a couple of glitches, but I feel like I've gone to enough conferences. I had been on enough conference planning teams and like, parties and events, right? Like you
Mhm.
wanted to make it feel like one thing I took away from Dr. James Wadley's first conference was like I felt seen, I felt
Mm,
loved, and I had never really gone to a conference where I really felt that way. And
mhm.
so I wanted my conference to be like, okay, here's a place we can learn, right? And bring people who are in North Carolina, but also external to North Carolina, but feel good while you're learning, right? Like, I don't know if
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
like, warm and fuzzy, all
Mhm.
while learning at the same time. So,
Yeah.
certain things, like budget wise, I didn't plan well because I was like, "Well, I just need to buy the things. We need 3 o'clock p.m. cookies."
I mean,
Mandatory.
exactly.
Oh, that's probably a testament to who you are not just as a planner and an organizer, but an educator as well. Like I'm sure your students feel that love and care and visibility in your classes.
They, I feel like they do. Like I think the first 2 semesters, I was just trying to be honest, I was almost like trying to replicate Miss Page, and I'm like, I'm just not Miss Page. Like, and there's so many things going on in the world that I want to talk about. So I switched it up, and then you know how, as an educator, we want to be like engaging. There were activities because some of our students come right from our high schools here in North Carolina, and the last sex ed they probably had could have been in ninth grade,
Mhm.
and I would give them an activity that we used to do for eighth graders, just anatomy, and they'd be like, "What's this?" And I'm like, "Well, this is an eighth grade lesson, just so you know. Like, not to make you feel bad, but like this is, the level of knowledge that you don't have or maybe can't remember because that's how it's set up in the system." I remember one semester I had someone come out to their mom. At first, I got a little nervous because I was just like, "Your mama better not call me." Like I didn't, but they were, because of the class, they felt more comfortable coming out to
Mm,
their mom, and
Yeah.
we took a class picture that year, and they wore like a pride shirt in the class picture, right? It's kind of dope. And then I had someone say that they realized that they were asexual after learning about like what asexuality was, and making space. I had someone disclose being intersex in the class. So I don't know. I feel, although my class has enrollment has not exceeded 30 probably at any semester. I think the cap actually is 25. So I don't think I've ever had a full 30, like past the cap of 25. But it's small, it's intimate, and I wish I could have it more times during the semester, or during the, well, during the semester, like multiple classes.
Mhm.
But I think it works for those who actually take it. And it
mhm,
used to be primarily health majors. So the health and physical ed majors are required to take the course in North Carolina to
mhm,
teach, but everybody else is kind of an elective, even the public health majors. So yeah, so I get a lot of mass communication majors.
mm. I think what you said about, your class being a point where people are being able to come out, or being able to disclose information is really a testament to what good teaching does, right?
Mhm.
Because there's so many folks who just don't know that there's a word for how they've been feeling for so long. And you hear kind of this political thing like, oh, people are making people this. No, they felt this way. Now they just have a word for it. And how included do they now feel in a classroom? Because they're like, oh, that's me, and that's such a testament to good teaching and your teaching and all the sex educators, around the world doing this work is people are finding their true selves and learning about themselves. And isn't that what it should be about?
It should be. Like, we're one of 6 HBCUs that has an LGBTQ center. And
Mm,
we just had our Queer Students of Color conference last week. um I felt like that conference should have been like hundreds of students. I know it was in the summer, but
mhm,
also still. But even when I think about the center, we've made strides on our campus, but we still have a level of homophobia, transphobia,
mhm,
all the microaggressions and marginalization that queer
mhm,
students feel. And so I feel like my class has been a space where the center has helped students, encourage them to learn more about themselves, or learn
mm,
more about their fellow students in that way. It's like we're in this partnership together to make our campus a better place. Like, I always say, why isn't my class full, or more people know about, like, I
mhm,
feel like sometimes I have to go out, and they were like, well, you need to market your class. That sounds weird. But then I was like,
mhm,
okay, I will. And
Yeah.
even in doing that, I could see like my peer colleagues, faculty members being uncomfortable with the fact that there's a sex ed class. I did have another class.
mm,
Tell me if I'm talking too much, but I started another class because at NC SexCon and prior to, I met Bobby Gordon, who used to work at UCLA in the AMP program. And so it was like performative arts and theater and dance and poetry, but in sex ed. Like, so you would take all those skills and learn those things and teach and then create videos or things that could be used later. And I remember I was like, I'm going to do that for a semester because we were cramming it all in like a couple of weeks, trying to get our peer educators to learn. And so I was like, no, let's just create a class. So the class was entitled, maybe it wasn't the best title, Performing Sex Ed. Whew.
Mm.
The folks were like, what is this class?
Oh, really?
Oh, it was not well received.
Wait, it's performing sex ed, not performing pornography.
Or
And
just,
even if it should be
Performing
like,
sex. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
I think that's what they saw, is like performing sex or
performing
sex.
sex.
Yeah. How to have sex or something like that.
Yeah. And so
Oh, people
maybe it
need to
was a
calm
poor
down.
choice of words, but it was exactly what we were doing. And it had a
And
description.
listen,
But I
and if
will
you
say,
don't have a little controversy, I mean, that's how people,
so I ended up
controversy is
only
marketing.
with 9 students that year, but our videos are slamming. We did some good videos.
I bet they are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
What's
You had said that your school's 1 out of 6 LGBTQ centers. So part of my
At an
ignorance, how many,
HBCU, at an HBCU.
yeah, at HBCU, how many HBCUs are there? Do you know? Part of my ignorance, I don't
107
know.
technically. A few
107.
of them kind of sort of don't like exist or operate as a college or even as a
Mm,
campus. Some of them like are online,
mm.
but 107.
Oh wow. So only 6 in 107.
Yep.
I
And the
wonder
last
how,
one just,
yeah.
so we're fortunate we have 3 of the
Hmm.
6. Go
In North
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
Okay.
NCCU, my school was the first. North
Mhm.
Carolina A&T, our rival, was the
Oh.
second. And then Fayetteville State University just
Mm.
theirs.
Wow, that's interesting. So here in Miami, we have FIU, Florida International University, which is a Hispanic serving institution. And I don't know what's happening with them because there was the DEI Center, which
Oh,
housed the Women's Center, which housed the LGBTQ Center, which housed some other initiatives. And those are no longer allowed because
yeah.
FIU is a public school. So I'm curious as to what
Caramba.
those folks are going to be doing. And then we also here in Miami have Florida Memorial, which is HBCU. I'm not familiar if they have an LGBTQ center or not. Well, no, because it's HBCU. You said no.
Yeah,
Do you
no.
know of it?
I
Wow.
don't know of it, but I know that they don't have.
Yeah.
I know there were
Yes.
some things. There was actually some students on the conference last week that were talking about things they were trying to do in Florida, but how hard
Mhm,
it was, and
mhm.
also Texas at Prairie View,
Mm,
and how they're navigating
yeah.
politics there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So a friend of mine was formerly a professor at Barry University, which is a private Catholic university here in Miami. But it's interesting what some of the private colleges are doing to kind of be allies to their public university colleagues to kind of lift them up, which is kind of cool because those teachers, those professors are really like coming down under like, some punishments. So it's been kind of interesting how the higher ed is coming together to support each other down here in
Yeah, the political climate is not making it easy for any of this work
mm-mm,
in a lot of states. Like we had a bill around state employees talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion specifically, but the language says it doesn't prevent a consulting agency from talking about it. But then I was so then in my mind I'm like, well, I'll just start this nonprofit. Y'all hire me. I'll do the talking.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just don't cut programming and funding.
yeah,
What is the yeah, this is a really important topic, I think, for our viewers who maybe don't know that like sex ed and health ed is like very different state by state. Like we've talked about Miami, we've talked about New York. What is what would a K to 12 public ed student expect to get health and sex ed wise in a public school in North Carolina? Let's say in your district where you live.
I was like, "Ooh, not my district." No, I mean, no, because
Shade.
honestly, my district is the largest. So I'm in Wake County, North Carolina. We are the largest school district currently. But we're probably one of the more conservative districts. Like we used to. So I'm saying used to because I don't know what happened this last time. I probably should know. But we didn't participate in the youth risk behavioral survey even
Mhm.
at one point, which is like you have the largest school district. That means you would get the largest potential response rates from some of the other school districts. But in some, I won't name counties, but I'll say, or districts, in some districts, they would get like prime time um health education at least middle through high school, because they would have teachers who are well trained in understanding not only the North Carolina standards but the national standards, who have come to different trainings that we've had, not just NC SETSCON or something like that, but different trainings throughout the state or nationally. And they also have people in their community who are doing like after school or in school sexuality education with some of the evidence-based curricula or best practices, so they could easily get a good range of everything beyond what the state requires. But then it could easily be, because we have 115 school districts, there's no way for the state to fully monitor who's doing what, even with the standards that we have. So at best, no, that's probably not at best. At worst, someone could easily get a handout of anatomy, turn that in, and could consider themselves done.
Mhm.
Wild.
Right. Right. Or an old school video was that, that Wonder Years clip that people always look at about like the bad, what is bad sex ed, and he's drawing this.
Oh,
It looks like a cow, but it's supposed to be like the ovaries and the uterus.
Oh my God, I've never seen that.
Oh, you must find out.
Oh,
See.
I always think of the one from Mean Girls when it's like
yes.
he's like on the chalkboard, he's like, don't have sex, you will die.
You will get pregnant and die.
Die. Like,
Well, and
Spells
that,
no.
chlamydia wrong.
yeah. Because even when I started doing my dissertation research, like I know me and my colleagues have poured out blood, sweat, and tears and trainings to like prepare people for the school year and what to teach and how to teach it. And I know everybody's not comfortable, but it's kind of like meet us halfway. And people will sit there, get their CEs, play Sudoku, and be like, hey, I'm just gonna call someone such from the health department. So on one end, you'd rather them call someone such from the health
Mhm.
department because you know they're gonna do it well. But at the same time, it's like you're not just not even gonna try. And that you have more
Mhm.
relationship with that student and opportunities continuously with that student, potentially for 4 years, than
Mhm.
the person at the health department.
Yeah.
So it just makes you kind of like sad and frustrated.
Do you see like many of your college students going into like sex ed or fields like that related to sexuality?
Yes, like that excites me most. Like
It's
I've
great.
had a couple of students go to Widener after leaving NCCU. They probably should pay me. Um,
Pay her.
I'll do a shout out to Symmetry. She is the semi-sexual and she has the sexual intellectual t-shirts. And I remember
Mhm.
she took my class. I remember she
I
walked
have
up
her
to me.
hat.
Yeah, she was like, I think I want to sell t-shirts. And I was like, well, why don't you? And let's go for it. And so we talked about different things. Next thing I know, she had launched. And I mean, she's got her swag on celebrities. Like, I
Mhm.
think the last one was Omarion.
Oh,
That
really?
Big
posted,
deal.
yeah, had on her t-shirt. And I was like, you
Okay.
go. Yeah,
Icebox.
yeah. And there was a group
Work.
at one point, like, you don't have favorites. However, when I was working in student health and still in public health, teaching, well, I was working in student health counseling services and teaching over in public health. I had a group of folks who were peer educators. We were doing like a women's health reproductive training. So I helped write the curriculum and train them on it so they could teach their peers. And at one point, all of them were working in sexual health in some way. And
Wow.
probably 3 of them still are.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, here's a weird connection. I don't know if I told you about this, Drew, but when I was at your
Oh,
conference this past year, I was doing a presentation and I'm looking into the crowd. There's maybe like 25, 30 folks in my workshop. And there's a person, and I'm like, gosh, I recognize that face. I just recognize the face, but I didn't know how. She comes up to me afterwards, and I actually had her as a student in New York. And now she
Yes.
is
she works
working
at the
in
health
public health.
department.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and knows you. I was like, well, look at this. Like, it was just so
Trained.
wild. She was like, I don't know if you remember me. I was like, no, I do. So that was pretty cool because, to be in North Carolina at this sexual health conference and then see a student from New York that actually went into the field was pretty exciting.
Yeah, that made me I was like, this is what this is all about. Let's go.
Exactly. That was so cool.
What a cool feeling. And knowing that you probably, I don't know, maybe the way you taught health had some sort of influence in there, or you made
Mhm.
health brought her joy in some way. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, I need to ask her. I was like, how did you end up in the public health department?
Mhm.
I knew she
Yeah.
wasn't from North Carolina.
Mhm.
But that was about it. And then when she graduated, she's worked for 2 of our biggest health departments.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, often I find it so funny when I run into students, right? And after teaching this long, like you can't remember everyone. Like you might recognize their face, excuse me. But it's interesting what they remember about my class, and it's usually something I didn't even expect. And sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, we don't do that anymore. Because 20 years ago we did little different things in health class. Now I'm like, but have you ever had
I
have
had
you
a
ever had
meeting
that
with the dean.
experience?
I had a meeting with the dean the other day, and well, I think the assistant dean, and she was like, "Yes, I've heard about you," and I was like, "Oh God." I was like, what have they said? She's like, no, people really have said that they've enjoyed your class. And I was like, because I was like, did they say I showed porn? Because I might have. Like,
Well, that's such a big difference from teaching high school to college, right?
right.
It's like there's such, you know, you're working with adults, so you can show different things, you can talk about different things.
Yeah.
Usually you don't get emails from parents, although sometimes that still happens, but
Well, I will say, like, I jokingly said I might have shown porn. I haven't shown porn, but I've shown explicit clips, but more so
Mhm,
things that they can see on their own, like on Netflix or listen, I'm
mhm,
a P Valley fan and JL
mhm,
Font, shout out to Lil Murder if you're listening. He went to NTCU. So I'm like, I'm proud of someone who attended our school at some point. And this clip that he was in was very relevant to us talking about sexual identity with
mm,
him and Uncle Clifford. So I was just like, and it's very representative of who our students are. So
mhm.
I used it, but yeah.
I think in college that's fine. That's, now if I did that with ninth graders, that'd be a
Yeah,
different story.
no.
I would
Not
probably be on the news and not have a job. But although I will say a bard, especially with our senior class, Drew and I could do a lot more. I mean, we still obviously didn't watch porn. We weren't doing like SARS because they weren't the right
yeah.
age, but we could definitely go deeper into conversations than with the ninth grade. But even with the ninth grade, sometimes I would be like, well, let's get into it.
They want to know. They're coming in and
Mhm.
they have a great deal of background knowledge
Mhm.
now. So it is fun to like, okay, we're
Mhm.
here. Let's go a little further. What do you
Yeah.
know?
If
Yeah.
they're asking the question, it's developmentally appropriate.
Exactly.
Like, like if they're asking, that means they already know about it. They already saw it on a video. They've already heard people talking about it. So better to like answer the question, what is truthful and factual and not shamey or judgmental, than to let them go
Mhm.
down the rabbit hole of the internet, which who knows what they'll learn.
Yeah.
I feel
Like I
like
think Drew, when we had our class, um our instructor at Widener was like, what was their rule? It was like, my values are my values, your values are your values, mine don't make me right, yours don't make me wrong, they're different, and that's it. And I was like, stealing, kuching. I made a little sign, put it on my syllabus,
Mm-hmm.
it's on my slides in the first class, because I'm like, there's gonna be some stuff in here y'all gonna be like, oh heck no. And that's okay, but somebody in here is like, oh heck yes. And
Mm-hmm.
we just have to be okay with it. So I
Mm-hmm.
really try to instill in them that everybody experiences pleasure and their sexuality in
Mm,
different ways, and it's okay.
Dr. HJ,
Yeah.
shout out.
Ooh, I'm glad I made
Literally.
it out.
I loved her so much. Like, thank God that was my first class at Widener. She just made us all feel so good, and she was such a ball of energy and light and so
Yeah.
smart.
I
Oh my
wouldn't have,
God.
I would not have continued because I literally only signed up for one class because I was like, I'm just gonna see how it is. And if these folks aren't for me, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And then I regretted not signing up for two classes. That
Oh, yeah. Widener was tough. It was tough.
it was. But I feel like the overall like all of us came into it with a degree in life experience.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that that helped navigate tough conversations, tough
Mm-hmm.
topics. Because I'm gonna let you know, sometimes in the beginning, Drew, I think you weren't. I don't think you ever sat that close to me. I think we were always kind of like an eye shot of each other. I was over there chomping the heck out of ice. A, I was anemic, but B, it was my coping mechanism because I was like, I'm uncomfortable. Like I'm like, I know that I'm comfortable talking, but that's what I love about now facilitating SARS. Because, like, one of the statements that somebody said in one of my SARS was that we think we know sex, but we don't know sex. Like, we're talking about sex, sex
Mm-hmm.
ed, and all the things, and telling people to be inclusive and blah, blah, blah. But then when we're actually watching videos or hearing people tell their stories or do demonstrations, we're not as comfortable as we think, and now we have to figure
Mm-hmm.
out like the why. And I remember chomping down on that ice trying to get my life together. I know Bridget was like, girl, that ice, I can't hear. And it was like a thing to, the rattling. So sometimes I'd be
Yes.
like rattling the cup trying to cope, like, okay,
Mm.
why do I
Oh
have
my,
this level of discomfort?
forgot about those. Oh my God.
We're sitting watching stuff with folks and then looking around like, is everybody okay?
Yeah, I remember just being very intimidated by the culture of the classroom. I felt like it was like my own insecurities about like my intelligence, and like being able to do grad school work and like so many smart people. I was very quiet during those conversations, and I don't know, I would love to go back and kind of see what we were actually talking about and like think about what I would say now, but I was like very shut down. I was
I feel like
uncomfortable as
you were
well.
quiet, but you were creative because I feel like one activity, me and you were on the same team. It was something random. Like we were doing like a search or something in the book. I don't even know. I don't even know if you remember that, but it was
I
like
don't know this.
we had we were assigned certain chapters and we had to like basically summarize the chapters. And I think you were creative
Mm,
in that way. Yeah, that's why I feel like I could pick up on your energy of being like a good teacher, because that's the other thing too in this work, in my opinion. Some people are just really born to do this. Some people can learn how, but like your personality, your energy level, your
yeah.
ability to connect with other people really makes a difference in being an effective
Mm-hmm.
sexuality educator. Like you can't be
Period.
all you can't really be timid, you can't really be too serious about yourself and life, like, or like
Mm-hmm.
things. um but also you just, I don't know, you just have, it's a thing. I maybe one day I'll find a word to describe it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like almost like how folks are actors or comedians, like they have
Mm-hmm.
that it factor, and
Mm-hmm.
some people just don't have it. bless
Yeah.
their bless their hearts from the southern.
Yes. 1,000%. People are either like just dry and you're like, oh, I'm gonna fall asleep, or they're so serious that you're like, okay, but I don't want to leave every day crying. Like we're going,
Oh
there
God.
has to be this balance of like silliness, because you know what? Sometimes talking about a penis is funny.
It,
Yeah.
sometimes you're talking about a butthole and you're like, well, here it is, like and it's okay. Like we don't have to be so serious. We doesn't mean we're bad people if we're like clitoris, you know what I mean? Or, it's just, and that's okay. But people, I think, sometimes get in their heads about every word must be perfect and everything. And then it just becomes this like drain.
Speaking of every word, so how did you just pronounce that word?
I know, clitoris or clitoris. What is the way?
Pecan, right? Like,
yes.
I feel like the Southern in me is like clitoris.
I teach them both. What is the correct term?
I teach them both too. Dr. Elizabeth Schroeder would have my head for this because she says clitoris and she says clitoris sounds like a cleaning detergent. But
because she's not from the South.
So yeah, I would always teach my kids the same as well. I say, you say pronunciation,
Say it again. Now, because I can't even remember how to say it.
There's either clitoris or clitoris.
Clitoris. I'm gonna start saying clitoris.
I think I say
clitoris. It sounds like Taurus, the zodiac sign.
Taurus season, Taurus twins.
What I usually do when I was teaching anatomy, and I would say all the words. Say this is a scrotum. You may have heard it called a nutsack, the testes, the balls. I would say all the words. Yeah, we used to.
That's why I like saying the gooch, because more people know the gooch than they do the perineum. So I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Yes, it is.
Nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows.
It's on a commercial too.
Let's teach folks.
It's on some drug. And no offense if you're using this drug or anything, but like one of the side effects is tear in the perineum. And I'm like, nobody knows what y'all are talking about. And I'm like,
because no one wants a tear in a perineum.
No. If they knew exactly what that was, they'd be like, yeah, I'm a pass. Is there another drug?
Yeah. Can I have the one that has heart failure instead, please? Because
don't mess with my perineum.
Okay, can we teach the people listening what a perineum is? Because I think there's some people listening right now like, what the hell are they talking about? So, Dr. Bass, do you want to tell our listeners what that is?
Well, I just call it the place in between. Like, so it's in between your anus and either your testicles or your vaginal opening, aka the gooch.
I've never heard
the what?
Taint.
Oh, the taint.
Did you hear that?
True.
Oh,
you're right, Drew.
I've never heard either of those. Yeah. I only know about it. I learned what a perineum was because my mom would talk about it because she had to have stitches when she gave birth. So my mom would talk about all these kind of things, and she'd be like, then it's called this, and you have tears. And I was always like, I can't have kids. I don't want any of my body tearing.
Yeah, and I was dying to know because I needed y'all to know the name of the drug is Jardiance.
What is it for?
Jardiance is, I think, urine incontinence, or no, it's a diabetes. It's a diabetes medication.
Okay. Well, don't come for us. Don't come for us. Sorry. Fix your side effects. Don't come for us.
Or just tell people what it is.
Or maybe one of your lead competitors of diabetes medicine wants to sponsor us. That doesn't cause perineum rippage.
Exactly.
We're not into rippage.
Rippage.
They say it so fast that I'm like, how did I even hear perineum? But I did.
Okay, so you say perineum, I say perineum. I'm probably saying it wrong.
Oh no!
I say both as well. I don't know.
We need to get Dr. Frazee in here to see how she pronounces it too.
I think
that's not fair because she's gonna say it
she's gonna say it the fancy way because she's British. Everyone, she'll be on the show soon. But yeah,
she'll say it and sip some tea.
Right. She's fancy. Well, we're basically out of time for today. But Dr. Bass, as always, it's such a pleasure to see your face and to chat with you all things sex ed. We're so honored that you came on today. Do you want to give everyone your info, how to follow you on socials and stuff?
I'm on Threads and Instagram at Dr. Tanya M. Bass. I'll be leaving Twitter probably this week, so don't worry about that. And yeah, just follow me on Instagram, and my website is tanyambass.com. So slide into my IG DMs. It's been a pleasure being with you all today. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully y'all learned something and maybe are interested in learning more.
Yes. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much, Dr. Bass. This was awesome. I'm leaving feeling smarter and happier.
Yes. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Peace.
Follow us on Spotify, podcasts on Apple, or our YouTube channel, Sex Ed in the City. Stay connected. We hope to see you soon.